Hello and welcome to another build video for the Elder Scrolls Online. Today we're going to be again looking at the Nightblade Tank. This is going to be a bit of a progression from the previous build I put out. Just to let you know, we are still on the Elsewhere PTS, so there are some elements of this build which may be subject to change. So let's jump straight in and look at our character stats. We are running max magicka of 33,500. We have a maximum health of 38,842 on the front bar. This drops down to 38,000 on the back bar. Our maximum stamina is 19,100. We have a magicka recovery of 1,175, health recovery of 417, and a stamina recovery of 611. Our spell damage is 2091 on the front bar. On our back bar we are running 1891 with 23% crit and 21% crit respectively. For our resistances, we have spell resistance coming in at 32,900, and we have just over 30k physical resistance on the front bar. For our second bar, back bar even, we are running 31k spell resistance with 28k physical resistance. This is unbuffed. If we buff up, you can see our spell damage hits 2,700. We have 32 crits. Our spell resistance on the front bar is 34,200 with 31,400 physical resistance. This goes to 32.5 spell and 29,689 physical resistance. Our magic recovery pops up to 1,352. For this we are running a tri-stat food, the long thin pastry with melon sauce, and Munda stones we have 2. We're running the Lord for extra health, and we're running the Mage for extra magicka. Taking a look at our gears. So we're still running for our monster set the Mighty Chundran's Visage, giving us the spell resistance, the physical resistance and the maximum health, plus the bonus of gaining Major Ward and Major Resolve at all times. Next set is the Twice-Born Star. This is giving us maximum health for our 2-piece, 3-piece maximum stamina, 4-piece maximum magicka, and our 5 items is what a 5-piece bonus is what is allowing us to run the double Munda stone. So the new set that we're running here is the Desert Rose. So what the Desert Rose is going to give us is just shy of 3,000 spell resistance, 1,200 maximum health, 1,000 maximum magicka, and for a 5-piece we have, when you take damage you have a 15% chance to restore 2,400 magicka. This effect can occur once every 4 seconds. So we are running Sword and Board on our front bar with an Ice Staff on the back bar. This is going to help us sustain our magicka on the front bar. For our traits and our glyphs, we have all divines with 5 pieces heavy, running a light slash and a medium. The divines and tri-stats on everything. For our jewellery, we have infused on all 3, running a magical recovery glyph and 2 spell damage glyphs. Our main hand weapon is Nirnhond with a weapon damage glyph, and we are running a infused shield with a health. This can also be swapped out for a sturdy, you'll just have a little bit less hit points. On the back bar, an ice staff, and this is infused with a Magicka absorption glyph. So for our skills, I have a couple of setups as you can see here. I'll take you through the basic one first. So we have Pierce Armor as our first skill. This is going to be our aggro and provides a major debuff to the physical and spell resistance of the target. Our main single target spammable ability is Concealed Weapon. We have Sap Essence for our AoE, which is also going to give us a little bit more healing, and when we're not running the spell power potions, this will also be giving us our major sorcery buff. Next we have Merciless Resolve. This has been changed, it's got some pretty interesting mechanics now, and the big benefit here is going to be the 3% stacks of damage resistance, going all the way up to 15% when we have all of them. So as you can see, every single time we light attack, I have an add-on here that lets me keep track of it. So once we hit 5 stacks, the skill changes its icon so that we can have the spectral bow as before. The difference here is the spectral bow will give us a heal now, and while we maintain our stacks, we're going to get increased damage resistance. What is kind of good about this is the damage resistance remains after the buff runs out. So as you can see on the buff counters on the bottom, I no longer have Merciless Resolve, but I still have my 5 stacks, which means I'm still getting my full 15% damage reduction. And if I rebuff, it immediately goes to the spectral bow. Last ability here we're running is Dark Cloak, so this is going to be giving us a heal over time and minor protection, reducing our damage by 8%. For the ultimate, I'm running Soul Harvest. This is at 70 ultimate cost. It's a nice cheap ultimate, so it will be available regularly, giving us a decent amount of damage, gives us access to major defile on the target, and while we have it slotted, anytime you kill an enemy you gain 10 ultimate, so this is going to help us get our ultimate back up. Onto the back bar, we have an ice staff, so we're not running a taunt as we have an auto taunt with our heavy attacks. First skill we're running here is siphoning attacks. This is going to give us magicka and health back on every light and heavy attack we do, and if you allow it to run its full duration, it's going to give you an additional 4,270 magicka. So it's best to keep this running until it expires. That's going to give you the maximum amount of magicka back for the investment. The next skill we have is Blockade of Frost. This is one of my flex skills which I use on the back bar. It's an AoE damage over time. That's going to be putting snare down, reducing movement by 40%. It also has the chance to chill enemies as it's doing ice damage, and anyone chilled inside it becomes immobilized for 4 seconds, so this is some good CC. Another option you can have in here is Debilitate. This is a single target, does a decent amount of damage, still has the snare, but the main lure here is the bottom effect. While this effect persists, the enemy is afflicted with minor magicka steal, causing you and your allies to restore 300 magicka every 1 second while damaging them. So again, this is another means for while we're on our front bar of keeping our magicka topped up and sustaining it. If your healer's running either Debilitate if they're a Nightblade, or they other morph to weakness to elements. That's going to put Magic of Steel on the boss anyway, so it's not really required, which is why it's on an alternate setup. The other alternate setup I have in here is Dark Shade. This is another damage over time, lasts 20 seconds, and while your shade's attacking, it's also going to be applying minor main. Onto our third skill on the back bar. This is Mass Hysteria. This is an AoE stun. Essentially what you're going to be able to do is it'll hit 6 enemies, and for 5 seconds they're just going to stand there and do nothing. So this is really, really nice crowd control. On boss fights where ad spawns is not going to be an issue, this is another one where you can go and pop in your shade, so you have some additional damage coming through, and you have the minor maim applied. The next skill is Mirage. This is going to give us major evasion, minor resolve, and minor ward, reducing the damage from AoEs by 25%, and it's also going to give us 1300 to our spell resistance and our physical resistance. The last skill we have on this bar is Twisting Path. So this is a AoE damage over time that we're going to be laying on the ground. It's going to give us major expedition, so we can move around and reposition freely. You can swap this for the healing path. I've yet to find it necessary, but that's the only other thing I would switch in for here. And then we have the ultimate on our back bar, which is Veil of Blades. Again, this can be swapped for the other morph. The other morph has more utility in that you don't need to stay inside the circle to receive the benefits, so anyone running in and out of the circle will still gain the major protection. I like this one as I tend to be a bit more stationary and it brings a bit more damage. Some other honourable mentions that are a bit more situational, but there is Reverberating Bash. There are some bosses where the Minor Defile from your Soul Harvest just isn't going to be up often enough, so with Reverberating Bash you can pop this in, and that means you're going to be able to apply Reverberating Bash with more frequency. This is going to obviously give you a bit more of stamina drain. On the back bar, another one is Crushing Shock, which I would put in for your blockade. The reason for this is there are some mechanics where bosses, if they're not interrupted, they're just going to one-shot one of your teammates, so it's useful to have a ranged interrupt on at least 2 people in the party, so that you can quickly end those without having to charge over, wasting your stamina and then using more stamina to bash interrupt. As for ultimates, I would only switch the one on the front bar. We are running 2 shadow abilities on both bars to help keep our hit points up, Sealed Weapon and Dark Cloak. Twisting Path and Mass Hysteria, and Veil of Blades, that's to keep us over 38k health on both bars. But for the front bar we can use, from the assault line there's Aggressive Warhorn, from the support line we have Reviving Barrier as an oh crap. It's also good to take the Magicka Aid if you're going to be having Reviving Barrier. That's going to give you a little bit more Magicka sustain. If you don't want to do Alliance stuff, you have an option of taking your Sword and Board ultimate. That's going to give you 7 seconds of free blocking. This morph reflects all range attacks, The other moth is going to allow you to use sword and board abilities with no cost. I find this one's generally more useful as you're not going to be spamming pierce armor often enough to really require the free use of it. And then there is the siphoning. I take the healing version of this as a oh crap button. Barrier works better, but this is also usable. Take a quick look at our passives now. So we'll start off down here. I am a Breton for this build. I have tried this with Imperial, Nord, Argonian and High Elf, and it works pretty well. I like the Bretons as heavy armor. We don't have a lot of cost reduction, and the Bretons come with a base. We're also getting bonus Magicka, which helps us with this Magicka orientated build. As for spell attunement, the spell resistance isn't really necessary here as we're going to be capped, and the doubling effect really is over and above what you're going to need, but it is nice to have that extra Magicka recovery. Obviously if you only use a different race, you'll need to tweak your CP a little bit and your allocation of points in your attributes. The rest of our passives, we want everything in all of our skill lines. For weapons, we want everything in one hand and shield, everything in destruction staff, light armor the top 3, medium armor the top 2 and the bottom 1, and heavy armor you want everything. For our world skills, soul magic the bottom 2. I don't run this as a vampire. I don't feel the benefits to a vampire will really apply here. Instead you're just going to be exchanging slightly better Magicka and stamina recovery for a large amount of extra fire damage. For the guild skills, I would take Shadow Rider from the Dark Brotherhood, Intimidating Presence and Banish the Wicked. For the Mage Guild you only need Persuasive Will. We're not using any mage, I don't put any mage skills onto this build. And then from the Undaunted we are running both of our passives to get the extra resources from synergies and then the additional stats for running all 3 types of armor. Last but not least, in our crafting, you will want medicinal use to increase the duration of your potions, and it's nice to have Gourmand and Connoisseur when you're provisioning just to get an extra 20 minutes out of your food buffs. So our CP. The red trees are going to be pretty basic. This is how I always kind of set up any heavy armor build that's not using shields. So we start off with 56 points into Ironclad to get 20% reduction against direct damage attacks. 56 into Hardy for the 12% reduction to physical poison and disease. 56 into Elemental Defender for 12% reduction to Flame, Frost, Shock and Magic. 28 into Thick Skin for 12% reduction to damage over time. And in the Lord we are going 43 points into Quick Recovery for 10% increase to the healing we receive, and 31 points into Heavy Armor Focus just to get our physical defense up to that 30k unbuffed so that we're hitting cap when we buff up. Excuse me. On Warlord we have 28 points into gain the 12% break free reduction, 8 points into Bashing Focus to gain a 5-point reduction to the bash, In our lover for our sustain, we are going 75 points in onto tenacity. This is going to increase the amount of magicka we get back when we heavy attack with our ice staff, and the stamina we get back from heavy attacks with our sword and board bar. Heavy attacking is the main method we're going to be keeping our stamina up, so we want a good investment here. Arcanist, 14%. This is just to make sure we're keeping our passive magic recovery over 1,000, and then obviously we gain our burst of resources from doing our heavy attacks. Don't need anything into Mooncarf, don't need any into healthy. Shadow Ward, we are putting 56 points in to get a block reduction of 20%. And tumbling, we're going for 28 points to get a 12% reduction to our dodge rolling. Onto the blues with the apprentice, we've gone 43 points into blessed. This is going to increase the healing we do with skills like Dark Cloak by 10%. Elfborn is going to give our critical damage and our critical heals an additional 10% bonus. 77 points in spell erosion. This is to get a flat 5k increase to our spell pen. This is a heavy armor build, so we do kind of want to maximize the penetration where we can, just so that we are getting the full benefit of our damage. Elemental Expert, 43 points to get a 10% increase to our magic flame, frost and shock. Onto the Astronaut, 56 points into Master at Arms. This is the only one I invest on this tree when I'm using both a physical weapon and a magical weapon, as all that happens if you try splitting points in between these two is you get two sort of half-baked bonuses, and if you try just stacking into one, you're not benefiting when you're on the other weapon. The points are better here invested into Thermatage, which is going to give us the 12% bonus to our dots. So we are using 2 dots, and one of our ultimates, if you're taking the Veil of Blades Moth, is also going to be dealing damage over time, so it's best just to maximise those rather than to try and buff up our damage with staffs and damage with our swords. And that's that. So with the changes which the Nightblade has been going over, I'm finding that it's becoming a lot more fun to play tanks. The Nightblade's always been an engaging class to play with, but they really seem to be working a lot more on what it is that makes Nightblades fun to use. And as much as I know I'm probably in the minority for liking the change to Merciless Resolve, Merciless Resolve does really kind of showcase how that works, so you're getting your benefits for being aggressive. So you know, the more you attack your enemy, the more bonuses you're going to be getting. You have that showing again with Sap Essence, where you're attacking your opponent to get your major buffs. The change to the Fear skill is very, very useful, as it's given something that the Nightblade Tank has sorely been lacking with the AoE roots, and the change to Shades is making the skill a lot more desirable to use now. So Nightblade tanking, I feel, has really improved this patch. Hopefully they're not going to be doing too many more changes. We're just going to let things settle down and let us play around with what it is they've actually done so far. But that's me for today. I hope you enjoyed. Feel free to comment and have a good day.